want to discuss about the architecture of our 8086. Okay. So how our 8086 basically works. Basically, this is basically discussion of that particular thing. Fine. So before discussing this particular block diagram of your 8086, I just want to let you know how 8086 perform the execution. Okay, so the basic thing that remains in any microprocessor, the microprocessor, the till date that we are using from the very beginning, the basic steps remain the same. Okay, so the first thing that it will do, it will fetch some instruction. Okay, so fetch means read. It read the instruction or read the program that is written in your memory. Okay, then it will decode. Okay, decoding simply means because you write the program in some high level language or assembly level language, right? So in our 8086 we use assembly language, right? So decoding simply means when you want to convert your assembly language into machine language, right? Because our microprocessor only understand binary language, right, or the machine language, because it only see ones and zero, right? So although you have written, let us suppose, move am, okay, so this is something which is understand to you, but it's not very much understandable to microprocessor, right? So you need to first convert it into some machine language, right? So that thing is some simply done by decoding circuit, right? So decoder circuit you already know, right? So that was the second process, and then it will execute. Execute basically means it will perform some operation, right? So in this particular case, you want to move the data from one memory location to another memory location. Then this step will perform, and then it's again go to the next instruction, and then it will again fetch the next instruction. It will decode it and then execute it, right? So that's how the complete program is kind of a executed by your 8086, right? So this is the basic flow of your 8086 thing or any microprocessor for that part, right? So so for this thing uh, to perform, we have now divided our 8086 into some blocks. Okay, so there are different levels how you can present your architecture, right? So this is one of the way you can show your architecture of 8086, where you are basically showing some block diagrams, right? So this is a block diagram of some memories or register, right? So firstly we will look into this diagram. I guess some of the things you already know. For the see, these are the yellow part which I'm saying. So these are your four segment register, right? So that you already know that in our 8086 we have some segment register, right? So this was this thing. IP, is your instruction point, right? So this is again a kind of a register. Then you can see here the rest of the registers which are placed here, which is your AH and AL that I already discussed, BH, BL, CS, CL, and these are again your pointer and index register, right? So this part we have already discussed. This flag part we already discussed. Fine. Now the what thing is now remaining? One thing which is remaining, you can see the heart of your microprocessor is your ALU, right? So ALU is the one thing, and you know what your ALU basically do, right? So all the arithmetic operations and the logical operations will be done by this particular block. Fine. Then you have one control unit. So control unit is simply what kind of operations you want to perform. Okay, so that will be decided by a control unit. And the one thing which is coming extra here is, so that we will discuss today, is this instruction queue, right? So this instruction queue we will see, but the rest of the blocks you can, I guess now you can able to understand what basically they mean. Okay, now in this particular diagram we will now want to see the flow. Okay, what is the flow of our execution of instruction? Okay, so how the program basically executed, right? So that we will see, but for the timing we will just first start a bit of theory, then we will come back again to this particular diagram. Okay, so I've written a bit of theory, so I just get just time of 5-10 minutes, so that's why I've written this thing. Okay, so I just quickly read it for you what it means. So your 8086 architecture is basically internally divided into two separate functional units. Okay, so it's a kind of a just, it's not a division actually, it's just for our representation we have divided the 8086 into two separate units, right? So one unit is known as your bus interface unit, okay, and the second unit is known as your execution unit, right? So bus interface unit is the BIU and execution unit is EU, fine. So why we divided it? Because it's these two units will now work simultaneously, okay, and to increase your system speed, okay. So we will see this. What is the meaning of this simultaneously thing? Just for the this part, okay. But for the timing, you have to remember that these two units will work simultaneously, right? And when you work simultaneously, no doubt your speed is going to be increased, right? And what is the now role of your BIU? So BIU, you can see here what it contains. So my that part, you can see that, okay. So this part, so this particular thing is my BIU, okay. So what you are seeing in my BIU, you are seeing some segment register and instruction pointer, okay. So someone can ask you what is the content of your BIU basically. So it contains your segment register and instruction pointer. It contains an instruction queue, right? And it contains some buses, right? So they do have some bus. What kind of bus? Kind of address bus, data bus, and control bus, that we'll see, right? So what is the use of then this bus interface unit? So it is basically, kind of a channel of your 8086 to communicate with your outside world, right? So whatever you want to communicate with your 8086, you will communicate it via BIU, okay. Your execution unit will not be directly accessible to the outside world, right? So firstly you have to go through the BIU and then through EU, right? So your execution unit will not get a direct access to the user, right? So firstly BIU will come into picture, and that is basically your 8086 interface, right? So what it provides 16 bit of your bidirectional data bus and 20 bit of your address bus, right? So we know already this thing that our 8086 has 16 bit of data bus and 20 bit of address bus. So these buses are basically available to my BIU, fine. And what are the responsibility of this BIU? So these are the basic functions of my BIU. So the first part you can see here, it sent the address of the memory or input output, right? So whenever you want to get access to some memory location, that memory location will be first calculated by your BIU, right? So all the memory location will be calculated by your BIU. Memory location means your physical address, right? And as we discussed in the last two classes, that can someone tell me what two things is required to get physical address? What are the two things required if you want to have a physical address? If you want to have a physical address, what are the two things needed? Can someone tell me?
Sir, base address and offset address.
Exactly, right. So you need a base address and an offset address to get access to a physical address. And you know that the base address will be going in, will be stored in the segment register, right? And because now you want to read the program, and can someone tell me where my program will store, in which segment?
The code segment.
Code segment. And to get the code segment, what is the default pointer or the register to get the effective address or the offset address?
Instruction pointer.
Instruction point, right? So you, for code segment, the default register to get the your effective address or the your effective address to or the offset address, you need an instruction point, right? So that's why you can see in this block diagram now, in your BIU, you have some segment register, okay? And because your main work of my BIU is to get the codes or get the memory location of the program where my program is stored, so that's why instruction pointer is there, fine. So you don't need other types of pointers in the BIU, right? But then the question can simply ask, then why my ES and SS and DS is there? Or if my work is just to read the program only, then what is the need of then ES, CS, and SS, DS, right? So the reason is that We have devoted our code segment for just the program, but again, it is not compulsory that all the program has to be written in the code segment, right? It's not always compulsory, right? So you can have some program written in some other segment also, right? Or you may need sometime the addresses of that particular segments also, right? So that's why the segment registers are put in the BIU, right? So the first thing that will BIU will do is firstly it will get the address of your memory from where my program is stored. The second thing you can see that once you get the address, you will fetch the instruction from the memory, right? So again, the fetch basically means you read the instruction which is written in the memory, and basically who will read this? Your microprocessor is going to read, and more precisely your BIU is going to read whatever is placed in that particular memory location. Fine. Third thing is again, if you want to read the data from the port or a memory, okay, so the reading of your data is also take place in your BIU, okay, not on the address. And also if you want to write the data into some port and memory, right? So as I told you, all the external things will go via your BIU, right? So if you want to communicate with the outside world basically means your memory and your input output ports, right? So this is the outside world for your microprocessor. So this thing will be go via your BIU, right? So once you perform the operation in your ALU, then ALU is basically give this your data to the BIU, and then BIU will give to data this to the memory, right? And it also supports your instruction queuing. So it supports instruction queue, right? So the instruction queue is the new concept is coming to picture. So all the things are very much similar to my 8085 architecture. The only thing that is changed here is my instruction queue, right? So we don't have a concept of instruction queue in 8085, and this instruction queue basically give rise to the concept of pipelining. Okay, so I guess I discussed that point when I started the discussion of the features of 8086, that it supports pipelining, right? So what is the meaning of pipelining? So that I will just quickly uh, discuss this thing. Just it takes 2 minutes hardly. See, the processor before 8086, they don't support pipelining. That means, let us suppose if you want to execute some instruction. So let us suppose some time is taken to first fetch the instruction. Let us suppose instruction number 1 is there. Then it will take some time to decode it. Okay. And then it will take some time to execute. So let us suppose you have 3 instructions: instruction 1, instruction 2, instruction 3. Right. So that's how your first instruction will be executed, and then you will go to the next instruction. Then again you will fetch second instruction. Okay. Then you will decode your second instruction, and then you will execute your second instruction. So that's how your series will go on, right? So what happened in this case is that once you fetch your instruction, then the fetch circuit remains idle, right? Once you decode your instruction, that decode circuit will remain idle, right? So it has to wait for the next instruction to come. Fine. So that's why the concept of pipelining happens. So what happened in the pipelining? So because now we have divided our architecture into 2 parts, or architecture basically means I have divided my circuit into 2 parts. So one circuit will only fetch. Okay. So that fetch circuit is known as your BIU, right? So the job of my BIU is basically just to fetch the instruction. Fine. So it will just take the instruction from the memory. That's it. Nothing else. Fine. So let us suppose in the first time cycle it will fetch the first instruction. After some time it will fetch the second instruction. And after some time it will fetch the third instruction, and so on. Right. So my BIU is basically perform only this thing. And what my execution unit is going to do, it will only decode and execute, right? So once you get the instruction, so that will be given to the EU. Okay, so the BIU will give the instruction, and then your EIU job is just to execute it, right? So once the EU get the instruction, it will decode it, and then it will execute it simply. Then my EU does not need to go again to the memory, because the next instruction is already present in the BIU, right? So the BIU simply gives the instruction whenever it wants. Okay, so once it completes my first instruction execution, the next instruction is already placed in the BIU. So the next part will be simply to decode it by second instruction and then to execute it. Right? So that's how you have saved basically one time, the time which is required for fetching, right? And that's why you have saved the time, and that's why the speed is increased in that particular case, right? So this concept is known as your pipelining. So you can, if you compare these two diagrams, so this is the kind of a thing which is performing 8085 or any microprocessor which does not support pipelining. And if any microprocessor support pipelining, so that means you are doing two things parallelly. So one circuit will just fetch the instructions, and the other circuit is going to decode, execute, that kind of a performance, right? So if you compare these two, you can see here very easily that after this time, you have this extra thing, right? So this extra thing you are getting more. That extra time you are now achieving by doing pipelining. Fine. Any doubt in this particular thing? Is it clear to all of you? What is the pipelining basically means? Fine. So that is what is written here. To if you want to speed up your program execution, you will do the instruction queuing thing, and the BIU basically fetches 6 bytes from the memory, okay, and it will place it in a queue. Okay, so queue is nothing but it's kind of a memory, or it is a register, all right. So it is basically a 6-byte register. Okay, so that is again, now you can see in the diagram. Okay, so these are the 6 bytes. Okay, the first, second, third, fourth, 5, 6. Okay, so these are the 6 byte where your instructions are going to be stored. Fine. And the question again then you come in mind that why there are 6 bytes only, why not less than this, and why no more than this. Okay, so the maximum memory that we can have for a one instruction in 8086, just wait for 2 minutes. Just wait. Yes. Yes. So what I'm saying that the maximum bytes that can have for one instruction in 8086, it's 6 byte. Okay, so the minimum is 1 byte of one instruction. Okay, so one instruction can have a minimum of 1 byte, and maximum it can have a of 6 byte instruction, right? So that we will see, right? So how many bytes it will take to write one instruction. Okay, but for the time being, you have to remember that the minimum, the maximum range of your instruction size in your 8086 is 1 to 6 byte, right? So that's why you have a 6 byte of registers here. So what happened is there, let us suppose you have now written as this is instruction 1, instruction 2. See, instruction 1 simply means, let us suppose I take a simple example also if you for better things. So let us suppose the first instruction is move AM. Next instruction is you want to move AB. Third instruction is move CB, anything like this. Okay. So these are 3 instructions. So now this is instruction 1, 2, 3, and it will go like so on. Right? So the first 6 instruction will be simply get stored in this register, right? So this register basically known as your instruction queue, right? And the queue is basically your first in, first out kind of a structure, right? So whatever go first, that will go first out, right? So it supports your FIFO kind of. Sorry. So it supports FIFO principle, right? So your first instruction will going to be stored here. You can see here, okay? This is my second instruction, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, right? So it will save my first 6 instruction, and then depending upon my execution unit when he want to execute. So this first instruction will first go to the execution unit, and then it will execute and perform the execution data, and then it will save the data wherever you want. Okay. So once the first instruction is completed, then the second instruction is going to come to the execution unit, and after completing the second instruction, then the third instruction is going to go, right? But as you're saying that as my instruction are going from my BIU to EU, my this kind of a stack is again, start getting vacant, right? So my seats are getting vacant now. So then my after one instruction is went to the EU, then my sixth position remain vacant, right? And then my fifth, fourth, three, two, one. So it shift, right? So my sixth instruction will shift to the fifth location, fifth and fourth will like this, fine. So basically my sixth byte will remain vacant, right? And after the second instruction, my fifth byte will also remain vacant, right? And then after third, my this byte will also like vacant. Right? So after 6 cycles, you can say my all the 6 instruction will become vacant. So then when we see the question asked, then when will be the next instruction is going to be read from the memory, right? So the answer for this is that whenever you see the first 2 bytes, that means 6 and 5, empty, okay? So whenever you see your 6th and 5th register empty, then you will read the next instruction from the memory, fine. So this is the thing which I want to convey you here, that just after my first 2 bytes, when it get vacates, you have to read from the memory, and then the next instruction will come to the memory, fine. Now again the question again will ask, then why 2, why not 3, and why not 1? What is the concept for this thing? So can someone think of this thing? Why only I say that after 2 bytes, if it's remain vacant, then only you will read from the memory? The answer is very clear, very simple. Two bytes mean how many bits?
16.
16 bits, right? And what is the range of your data bus? 16 bit, right? So basically you can read or you can get a value of data of the 16 bit at a time, right? So that's why it's always convenient, to read 16 bits at a time, because you have a 16 bit of data bus, and that's why if you have a space of 16 bit, then only it's always convenient. It's a better option. You will only read when you have a 16 bit of location at least with you, right? So whenever you get a 16 bit of location empty, then you will fetch the instruction from the memory, fine. If you only one space is vacant, so you know that you are just wasting your data bus, right? So because you have a data bus has a capability of getting 16 bit at a time, but you have a capacity of just 8 bit, then the 8 bits kind of remains unoptimized, right? So it's kind of an unoptimized thing, right? So that's why you read 2 bytes at a time, fine. So that was the concept of your instruction queue. So in a very basic language, you can say that. I just take a very small example. So because it's kind of this is one water box, right? So this is a water box. This is the water box, which is the supply which is come from your municipality, right? So this is your home. So one way to get the water is, right, so take the direct supply water box, okay, and take the water from the water box, okay. So second way is what you do. So whenever the water box is there, and you save some water in your own water tank. So this is your personal water tank, and this is your house, right? So now you are not dependent upon your water box anymore, right? So because you don't have to wait for water box to give the supply of your water, okay. But now whenever you want the water, you can simply take from your personal water tank, right? So this particular water tank is basically your own personal water tank, is sometimes known as your instruction queue, right? And this water box is nothing but your memory, right? And it is always easy to read from registers than from the memory, okay. So it's always easy, that means it's always fast, right? So because again the concept remains very simple, because if you want to read from the memory, you need certain time, because memory has a huge space, right? So we are now addressing a 1 megabyte of memory, right? So once you want to read from the 1 megabyte of memory, and once you want to read from the 6 byte of memory, right? So I guess it is very clear that reading from a 6 byte of memory is always going to be fast, right? That's why we store a small part of my instruction in my registers, okay, and then I will simply get read by my E, right? But again, the question comes, I'm giving all the summary, right? So all the overview which is there in the architecture. Then again, the question comes, then which case your pipelining fail, right? What is the case when your pipelining is failed? So there is one case where your pipelining fail, and this is very often occur in our programs. See, now the thing is, because we have written our instruction in a memory in a linear way, right? So in the first memory location, let us suppose in a memory location again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have written our instruction 1. I'm assuming that all the instructions are usually taking 1 byte only. Then in the next memory location, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, I have instruction 2. Then in the next 47, 48, like this, I have third, fourth, fifth instruction, right? Then in 50, I have sixth instruction. And it's so on. At 60, I will get 16th instruction. At 70, I will get 26th instruction, right? Now let us suppose I have a 26th instruction, which is stored in memory location from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1, 2, 7, 0. Fine. So now you know that my BIU or the instruction queue is going to read the first 6 instruction, right? So it will take the first six instruction and store in its queue, right? It's fine. So then your execution unit will take one instruction one by one, and then it will execute or it will perform the operations, and it will go smoothly. Fine. No, nothing is wrong in that thing. But what happens sometime, let us suppose in the third byte or the third instruction, basically, in this third instruction, you have written some instruction which is a conditional option there, right? So this kind of conditional instructions are written. So I guess in the today's lab we have seen one kind of instruction that was J and Z, right? So who have already, all people have now performed your first experiment. There we have seen, right? So there we have one instruction J and Z. Basically, you want to jump when there is a no carry, right, to some particular memory location, right? So at that case, if this situation becomes valid, that means you know want to jump to any other memory location, right? So let us suppose in this particular condition you have written that you want to move to a memory location 1256 hexa. Okay, so you written that J and Z 1256. Okay, so I'm again writing this thing 1256H. So what this instruction basically telling you that you want to jump to this particular memory location when you see a no carry bit in the carry flag. Okay, so if you see no carry bit in the carry flag, then you're not going to execute the fourth instruction, but now you are interested to go to the this particular memory location. So whatever which is written in this particular memory location, that instruction will be executed, right? So that's why, because now your instruction queue has already saved my fourth, fifth, and sixth instruction, right? So this is kind of a waste, because now you have put a conditional here that I will see whether I will want to read my fourth instruction or not depending upon my carry flag. Okay, so again, it is not always 100% surety that my fourth instruction is going to be read or not, right? So that's why here my pipelining concept fails, because I have already my fourth, fifth, and sixth bit already in my instruction queue. But now, if this case becomes valid, then I no longer needed this particular instruction, and I have to now jump to this particular memory location. So whatever is written here, that particular instruction now will be executed, right? So by all the instruction queue will be flushed out, or you can say dumped. Okay, and again you will start from the this thing. Okay, so then this will be remain my starting address, fine, and then again it will take 6 particular bytes from this starting address 1256. Fine. Is it clear to all of you when my pipelining failed? Any query? Anyone? No, okay. It's very difficult to ask to everyone, right? How many of you able to understand? Still, if can someone give an answer? Anyone able to understand? Yes or no? If it is no, yes, then I guess it no one able to understand. No one. You people are there or not? I just have doubt because you, I guess, because it is now recording. How many are present? It's very difficult, to ask everyone because it's 109 attendees. Still, someone is raising the hands at least. How to see the other people here? Can someone tell me?
सर
Just seeing
नीचे
this.
Scroll down the options is below.
I'm scrolling.
सर वो चैट बॉक्स बना हुआ साइड पे उसके राइट में
वो तो ठीक है, वो तो पार्टिसिपेंट आ जाएगी उसमें तो।
हाँ जी सर।
पर इस गैलरी में ये तो ठीक है।
सर ये नीचे इसको लेफ्ट स्क्रॉल करिए, जो नीचे स्मॉल वाले दिख रहे हैं इनको लेफ्ट स्क्रॉल करिए।
कर चुका हूँ, लेफ्ट कर रहा हूँ मैं, नहीं आ रहा कुछ। चलो समझ में आ रहा है मेरे को, किसी को कोई फीडबैक नहीं आ रहा, कोई आवाज भी आ रही है बता दी करो ना बीच में, पता चले कि कुछ आवाज ही नहीं आ रही है। यस और नो कुछ तो बोल दिया करो ना।
ओके सर।
यस
ठीक है ना, तो आगे समझ पाइपलाइनिंग। ये कोई नहीं हाँ भर रहा नहीं आया समझ तो बता दो मुझे, कोई क्वेश्चन पूछ लो फिर मैं पूछूंगा, नहीं तो फिर एग्जाम में।
एक बार खुद से पढ़ना पड़ेगा दोबारा, मतलब थोड़ा समझ तो आ गया वैसे, पर देखना पड़ेगा।
ठीक है। सो this was the concept of your pipelining. So I'm basically discussing your architecture part. So your BIU basically get the address. Firstly, it will calculate the address. Then it will go to that particular address in the memory. It will fetch the instruction from the memory, okay, and store in the instruction queue. So that is the only job of my BIU, right? So let us suppose I have written a instruction move AM. Okay, so firstly your BIU will going to see where my this move AM instruction is written. Okay, so that first job of your BIU is to get the address of this particular instruction where it is stored. Okay, so once it will calculate the address, then it will go to that particular memory. It will read the instruction which is written here, that is move AM. So this move AM is now go to the instruction queue. That's it. Okay, and then your control unit will decide, or it will your execution, that is in the execution unit. Okay, so it will not decide, basically it will decode it, right? So the decode basically means now this move AM will be converted into machine language, right? So it will convert into machine language and it will see what does that mean. Okay, so there the concept of opcode come into picture, right? So what is the meaning of opcode? Now that I will tell you. Operational code. Okay, so the opcode is basically nothing. It is just conversion. Whenever you convert your assembly language into your machine language, okay, so that machine language that you have converted for a particular instruction, that is known as the opcode, right? So let us suppose I have written move AM. So this move is known as your mnemonic, and A and M are your operands, right? So if your operands and mnemonics, right? So if you have only mnemonics and only your register operands, then you can have a particular opcode for that. Opcode again meaning is kind of a coding, right? So let us suppose I give you a very simple example. Let us suppose you have only these three things: add, sum, multiplication, and division, right? So these are the four operations that can be done. So you will say that if I write add, that means it is 0 0. If I write sub, this means 0 1. If I write multiply, it means 1 0. And if I write division, it means 1 1. Okay. So this is what you will write in assembly language, and this is what your microprocessor will understand. Okay. So it is already, we have decoded it, right? So we have a decoder circuit that whenever add is entered, that means you are basically trying to say double zero, right? So double zero then means you want to add, then your control unit will activate your adder circuit, right? So whatever the value which is now given to the microprocessor, that value will go to the adder circuit, right? So my adder circuit will be activated. So you push or you not push, you will write add. Okay, so you have written add, your microprocessor will see is at a double zero. Okay, so this double zero will now decode it to go to the decoder part, right? So decoder is, it's kind of a demultiplexer, right? So your demultiplexer and your adder circuit will be now get activated, right? So that's how different operations can be done by using opcodes, right? So these particular things are known as the opcodes, right? So what I told you that if in your instruction you only have the mnemonics means this kind of operation, add, sub, move, multiply, and if you only have the operands, that is of only register, right? So for that particular thing, you will have a one particular opcode, right? But you can't have a opcode for complete this thing, move 8h. In this particular instruction, what you are trying to say, you want to move a data 08 in a accumulate, right? So for that, you can't have a one unique opcode, right? So you can have a unique opcode until move A, right? So move has some meaning to the microprocessor. A has, you can give some value to the microprocessor, but this 08, right? So because this 08 is completely user specific, right? So someone can write as 09, someone can write as 10, 11, 12, right? So we can't give code for every bits or every data value, right? So we can't give opcode for the data values and the address value. We can only give opcodes to mnemonics and register. Fine. So if I write move AM, so let us suppose I have just, just for your example, it's not the actual case. Let us suppose I have, if I write move, that means I write, it will be converted into triple one. If I write A, it will convert it into 01. If I write M, it will convert it into 10, right? So I have written move AM, but in the machine language, it will be seen as 1110110. Okay. So that is the opcode of your move AM. Okay. So whenever you write move AM, this data value will be go to the decoder. Okay. And then depending upon my decoder output, the particular circuit will be activated, right? But we can't have a opcode for this thing, move A08. So for this particular thing, okay, for move, I can have a opcode 111, and A, I have a opcode, let us suppose 01. That's it. Okay, so this is the only thing. Then 08, basically, again, it will be seen by the decoder differently. Fine. So opcode, as I told you, is only will be there for mnemonic and for if you have only register in your instruction, right? So that's why you've seen here, there is the only thing here. There's a one line here, so I guess it's now very difficult to show, because if I, it's very good, I can able to remove this. So you can see here what I'm trying to say here. So this is very important here. It's a very one tiny detail. So once you are, see, it's this thing. In this thing, one arrow is going to the control unit. So control unit basically means your decode, right? So this will decode your opcode, and one line is going directly to the data bus. Okay, so when you write move AB, okay, so I just take example here. If you write move AB here, let us suppose your first instruction is move AB, right? So we do have a opcode for this move AB. So all the instruction is now go to the control unit, and it will decode, and then it will go to the ALU. But if you write move A08H, so this move A, it will be decoded by your control unit, but this 08 value, that will go to the data bus. Okay, because 08 value is not understandable by your decoder unit or the control unit. Okay, it will not understand what is 08 basically means. Okay, So it will understand move and A because it has particular opcode for this thing, but it will not understand your 08. Fine. So that's why you have seen here that we have two arrows here, right? So some part of your instruction will go to the control unit, and some part of your instruction can go to the data bus also. Fine. Then the next part that we have the execution unit. So execution unit is very simple. You already know all this thing. So execution unit is basically to execute the operation, right? So let us suppose you now want to add A and B. So this A will be go to your this is operand 1 and this is operand B. Okay, so this will go to the arithmetic logical unit and you will get the output. Okay, so you'll get the output C here. Okay, and you also know that once I perform the operation like addition, my flag register also changes, right? So that we have to see my flag register in terms of my parity flag, zero flag, sign flag, right? So that value will also given to the flag register. So ALU has two output, right? So one is the output that we want to see, that is A plus B is C, and one output will be stored in the flag register. Fine. So that's how you can add your number A and B in your ALU, right? So the C will again go to, you can see here, this now C will now send back to some register, which will be stored in some memory. Okay, so we want to store this C value to some particular memory location. Now that can be stored there. Fine. So that's how your execution unit will be do their work. Fine. So the basic work of your execution unit is just to perform arithmetic and logical units. And once you get the data, you have to now store that particular data to some particular memory location. That will be done by your execution unit. Fine. So in the execution unit, you do have some control circuitry, you do have some decoder units, you have some ALU, okay, and you have some registers. That is your flag register, your general purpose register, and your pointer and index register. Right? So this is the content of your execution unit. And the contents of your BIU was your segment register, instruction pointers, and instruction queue. Right? So this is the contents of your BIU. Fine. So I just again take one simple example and then we'll stop. Oh, this will go. So I just take this example, add AB. Okay, so how this add AB is going to take place using this architecture, right? So let us suppose this add AB is stored in this memory. Okay, so the firstly this add AB will be the address of this add AB is calculated by this particular segment register and instruction point, right? So firstly you will get the address, read the data which is stored in this particular memory location, that is add AB. So this add AB will now come to my instruction queue, right? So this instruction queue and it will go to here, my first instruction, right? Then this will be decoded by my control unit. Okay, so my control unit will decode this particular instruction, and then after decoding it, it will see that you want to add two number which is stored in register A and register B. Okay, so you will request register A to give the number first, and you will request register B to give second number. Okay, so you will request that, and then your A register will give the value to the accumulator, or sorry, to the ALU, and the B register will give the value to the ALU. Okay, so they both give the values, gives basically means now copy. Okay, so the A and B values will now behave as the operand 1 and operand 2 to the ALU, and then your ALU will get the data, that means the content of your A and B register, and the ALU simply add this two number. Okay, and then because you have already written that you want to add A and B, so basically now you want to get the data into the accumulator only, right? So because you know that add A and B, your data will be stored in the accumulator. So whatever the content you will get, that is here C, that C will be again copied to my A register. Fine. So this C will now go back to my A register and it will be saved there. And also my flag register will change accordingly. Right? So that's how all the instruction will be performed in this particular 8086. Right. So again you see here, first part is fetch the instruction. The fetching part is done by your BIU. Okay. Then the decoder part will be done by your control unit, and then the execution part that will be performed by your execution unit. Fine. And that's how all the instructions will be executed one by one. So that was a small story of the architecture part, okay, of your 8086. So please go to the book and read the theory. Okay, so I have discussed in a summarized way. Fine. And if you found any doubt, then you may please ask in the next class also. Okay. So doubts are always welcome. And if you have any doubt, you can ask now also. Okay, so that's it for today's class.